Hello and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Let me welcome you all at Ambrela Development Forum 2024 that is starting right now, so please take your seats. Take your seats, make yourself comfortable. I hope that you are all ready to start and learn a lot of new and fruitful information. We have gathered here today to discuss the pressing issues in development and humanitarian sectors. We will tackle the situation in Ukraine, of course, but also in Gaza. We will also broach the situation in East Africa. And you will hear about the challenges the civil society is facing today. And we will also explore the role of global education. All of these are very pressing current issues that not only Europe, but the whole world is facing today. And I really hope that you will enjoy listening and also engaging in discussions with distinguished speakers and their up-to-date analysis and answers. Apart from being here at the main conference hall, where we will discuss during the plenary panel discussions the main topics of our conference, you can also get a chance to participate in deep talks with experts or workshops that best suit your interests. I hope that you will find what really interests you most, and you will be mostly satisfied with our program today. Ambrela Development Forum, as you maybe know already, is an international conference organized by the Platform for Development Organizations, Ambrela, in partnership with the Slovak Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. Other partners are European Commission and EU under the project Stronger Roots, as well as Faculty of Social and Economic Sciences and Faculty of Arts of Comenius University. My name is Eva Mihočková. I am editor-in-chief of Foreign Policy Media website run by Slovak Foreign Policy Association, and I have the honor to be the master of ceremonies today. Let me ask the State Secretary of the Slovak Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs, Mr. Rastislav Chovanec, for a few words to officially open our conference today. Mr. Chovanec, please. The floor is yours.
Good morning, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you at today's Ambrela Development Forum in the name of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Last year, my appearance at this conference was the first in my new position as a State Secretary, and I said that I hope that in the future, we will have less problems and less crises to deal with, and that the world will come back to normal. Unfortunately, I have to say it didn't happen, and I'm sorry to say that it looks to me like there are still more crises right now in the world, and the situation for you, especially for the non-governmental organization in this area, is getting even more difficult. We still have a war in Ukraine. We are dedicating a lot of time and effort to offer the humanitarian aid and to be supportive as much as possible. And I believe that when we meet here next time, the situation will definitely change. From our ministry, I can confirm that we were able to offer a specific package of humanitarian aid for Ukraine in the field of energy sector that was offered by the government to Ukrainian government during the governmental session on Monday in the value of 500,000 euros. And we are also working on the new package of winterization that can be again in the hundreds of thousands of euros. It's not much. If it would be up to me, I would like to find more money in the budget for the support of Ukrainian people, but at least we are trying to be as helpful in the needs that our colleagues from the Ukrainian embassy are asking us. Unfortunately, there is still crisis going on in Gaza, which many of you are actively taking part of in helping the people to make the situation better. And we had many more other climate crises and war crises and hunger crises that we were trying to help. I'm very sad and I'm disappointed that I have to announce or have to admit that due to the restrictions in our national budget, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Finance cut the amount of money that was supposed to be spent on development and humanitarian aid by our ministry. I'm optimist. I'm always an optimist, so I believe that there will be a way how to attract at least some of this part of the 3 million euros that we were not able to offer you for your projects, that we will be able to get it back. There are some talks ongoing, and I really believe that it was a one-time measure that had to be taken because of the state of our deficit and in the need of collecting money via consolidation. It's sad also because there were many new projects and many new organizations that asked for the grant from our support scheme for humanitarian and development aid. We, as I mentioned before, we are also trying to focus on some business projects that are part of the development aid. And last year, or actually this year, we received the biggest amount of application. There were 28 different projects to be supported. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, we were able to support only 3. As I said, I really believe this was a one-time situation, and we are asking in the next year budget for the same amount that was promised us in the last year. So I believe there will not, or it will not mean that we will have to maybe decrease the value of support that we were offering to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your dedicated work, for the activities that you are doing for the people that are in need. I really believe we will be able to support you, and that the good communication that is between the representatives of Ambrela and people and my colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will mean that there will be many more interesting and very valuable projects supported in the future. And I hope that next year, if I will be again invited and I will be able to come, I will be able to say that the tide has changed and that we are going to live in a better and more peaceful world. Thank you for that. Please have a interesting and very fruitful discussions during the conference. I know that there are very many interesting guests, and that also today's conference and the activities will lead to the better support for the people that need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chovanec. I'm really glad that we also have Katarina Maternova with us, who is online. I can see her, you can see her already. Katarina Maternova is the ambassador of the European Union to Ukraine. Previously, she held senior management posts at the European Commission, and she worked with Ukraine on crucial reforms since 2015. So, Ambassador Maternova, I hope that you can hear us now.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that I can pass the floor to you and ask you for a few words to open our conference.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm sorry I cannot be there in person. I'm in fact coming to Bratislava, but only over the weekend. I could not make it. Earlier, and I think I will, after the State Secretary spoke about the importance of the civil society, and both in reforms and humanitarian work, development work, sort of in general in crises, I will stick to my brief, which is to talk about Ukraine and a little bit a little bit explain the situation now and also talk a little bit about what the opportunities are. We are now in 2024, which is the hardest of the 3 years of war. It's has been an extremely difficult year for Ukraine and for Ukrainians, and it translated, for example, in the highest amount of civilian casualties. Every 3 months, the High Representative for Human Rights actually documents the civilian casualties, and every 3 months they have to declare this is the most lethal 3 months that have been experienced by Ukrainians. In fact, September was the first month since the beginning of the war where the Shahed drone attacks by Russia on Ukraine have been happening daily. September was a month where there was not a single day without bombing civilian infrastructure, hospitals, schools, houses, dwelling quarters, shopping centers, and without relenting. Even worse, during the same month, Russia launched 200 missiles and 4,000 glide bombs. This is the technique that allows them to kill at mass scale the neighboring regions and also the front lines. So right now, Ukraine is an extremely precarious situation militarily, geopolitically, politically, domestically. But the one area which is really devastated is the human suffering, the loss of life, the kidnapped children into Russia, and so it's really time when Putin's terror on people is really coming to a really sort of crunch time. And this is especially in the social and human area and humanitarian area. This is where the support and civic activism that Ukraine is famous for is extremely important. Before I talk a little bit about the reforms and the perceptions and misperceptions about Ukraine and opportunities, let me also say that we are going to the third winter of the war, and this is a very scary one because what has happened since 2022, 10th of October will be as famous in history books as 24th of February 2022, because that's when Russia started bombing energy infrastructure of Ukraine. And this year in March, they renewed its attacks, not only targeting the electricity grid, but by now they have destroyed 85% of Ukrainian electric generation capacity. There have been cumulatively, some of it has been repaired, some of it has been substituted. There is a lot of, mobile turbines and generators, etc., that are brought in. But there is also interconnection of Ukraine and Moldova with the European continental European electricity grid. So there are ways they are coping, but already this summer there were blackouts of 16 hours a day. And what is scary is this prospect of the winter. It's the biggest war yet, because simply put, Putin's plans are to plunge Ukraine into darkness and freeze its people. And that's very, very clear. All the Ukrainian partners and friends and donors have been trying to help on this front, but we will see how successful we have been collectively only when the winter is over. Now, let me just say, I'm now the EU ambassador in Ukraine, but I have dealt with Ukraine from the EU side for the last 10 years. I have been in charge of Ukraine in the European Commission. And over the last 10 years, I have faced a tremendous amount of false narratives, disinformation. The one area where Russia is extremely skillful is developing false narratives and spreading them and planting them. And they have been at this for well over 10 years about Ukraine. In fact, Russia, before the war, succeeded in framing the Western view and perception of Ukraine, whether in Western Europe or in the US or in Slovakia, for that matter, that it's so corrupt, it's practically a failed state. Then the war came, we discovered that they are by far not a failed state. And in fact, in Transparency International Index, Ukraine had the highest delta of improvement last year, and over the last 10 years, it improved 44 points. So none of this is really based in reality. I'm not saying there's no corruption in Ukraine, but there is corruption in many other places. And so they have made tremendous efforts in governance, in judiciary, in corruption, in structural reforms, in liberalizing the economy, in their agricultural sector, etc., to basically function and transform their country. And a lot of these efforts, of course, are now part of their bid to join the European Union, which they, in fact, applied for just 4 days after the full-scale invasion. I must say it surprised us in Brussels because, we were trying to get bulletproof vests and whatever other emergency kits supplied and delivered to Ukraine. And they, in fact, came with this request and then with this application, and then very quickly filled up the questionnaire. I mean, it was really a sprint at that time, and now we are in negotiations. Now, on to the issue of civil society and civic activism. We work and collaborate with civil society across the board. We have very important relations in the area of energy, of economy, of all social issues, obviously in governance and anti-corruption reforms, and also with a slew of institutions on the humanitarian side. And in fact, the grassroots organizations and local actors were really the backbone of the emergency response in the first month of the war. I mean, the classic emergency responders, notably from the UN family, took a little time to adapt to not dealing with the failed state. So it was actually the local actors and the civil society, whom we basically told, you have our grants, do whatever is necessary at this time that you see on the local level. We redid all the contracts and grants, etc., to have them active, and this was really the main factor in the first month that allowed people not to freeze and have their basic needs covered. Now we continue with a lot of this organization in Ukraine under our project EU for Recovery, and also with the anti-corruption type and governance and watchdog organizations under our anti-corruption initiatives. And what we want to do more and more is to localize and tailor our assistance in a way that will build capacity in the sector. I mean, over the last several years, I in fact led an initiative in the Commission that changed the way we support in the east of Europe civil society support, that we do not only action grants but also institutional grants and work in local languages and work not only in the capital but outside. And this has become really a hallmark of EU's assistance to support grassroots and smaller and medium-sized organizations And I think this is an area where the more established and longer serving institutions or newcomers with good innovative ideas can really be supportive. So I cannot underline enough the importance of active participation in the neighboring countries of Ukraine and other Central European nations in the support of the civil society in Ukraine and helping them thrive. The same thing applies to the reconstruction support that the EU has put. I mean, I'm not even recounting what we have done over the last 10 years or even since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, but the 50 billion package that we announced last year really reflects the strong European solidarity aiming to help Ukraine emerge both democratic and integrated into Europe. And this reconstruction process is really a collaboration between the government, civil society, and businesses. Key topics for reconstruction is workforce development, veterans reintegration. A lot will be demanded in terms of mental health. And we see it already now. I mean, we are facing potentially half a country with PTSD at a scale that has never been experienced before. Green transition, energy issues, all these things we do in consultation with civil society and businesses. And again, these are areas which really present opportunities for development partners and civil society organizations from Central Europe. As Ukraine is nearing 1,000 days since the start of the full-scale invasion, it is clear more than before that the unprecedented challenges Ukraine faces will only continue to grow until, hopefully, the end of the war will come. And they can only be overcome by collaborative work. Here I must pause a little bit and reflect on the fact that I'm from Slovakia. I was in fact born in Bratislava. And it is with, and I have made this testimony in many articles or rather interviews. So it's not going to be news to those who have read any of them. It's sad for me how Slovakia, despite its tremendous amount of support officially to Ukraine, has really benefited so little, so really little from all the opportunities that the European Union has provided to the neighboring countries to really open up new border crossing points, support new transport links, support new connectivity, build various centers. I remember how difficult it was to even convince, and Mr. State Secretary, this was actually the previous government, or previous even, to even open one of the logistics centers in eastern Slovakia, through which the EU brings all the material, etc., to the EU. We've been pleading for a direct train from Kiev to Košice for 2 years, and unfortunately, the announcement that now there is going to be a train, it's actually you have to change in CHOP, so it's not the direct train, despite the technical possibility to have one. So I really hope that the civil society will continue stepping up and continue really be the one that is actively involved and will help also on bringing life to the cross-border dimension more than has been done or possible so far, because it would, speaking from a Slovak point of view, it would. There's nothing better that would happen to Eastern Slovakia than to have a prosperous, vibrant, and democratic country on the other side of the border. But let me maybe not finish on that happy note of prosperous, democratic, and safe country on the border, because any discussion that you're going to have, or any discussion on support and reconstruction of Ukraine, will only make sense once Ukraine prevails in the war and is able to win just and sustainable peace. And that is still not clear when and how it will happen, but I very much hope it will happen soon, because the society on the other side of the border is exhausted. Many, many people have died. The armed forces are at the end of their abilities, and the brutal attacks by Putin regime are only increasing. As I mentioned, September was the first of daily attacks. I'm sure October will bring new grim statistics and so on. So let's hope this madness will end indeed in just and sustainable peace. And I wish you great deliberations today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Maternova. Thank you for your words and also for the strong message to Slovakia about the importance to continue to support Ukraine on its way to win the war and to achieve a sustainable peace. So thank you very much once again. So to complete our opening speeches, I would like to invite Daniel Kaba, the Executive Director of Ambrela, to join me here on the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and distinguished speakers, good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. State Secretary, for being so open in your introductory remarks on the relation towards the civil society. We appreciate that. Thank you also to Ms. Katarina Maternova, Ambassador of the EU to Ukraine, for not only sharing with us current statistics and data, but also to share your views about what should be done when it comes to supporting Ukraine. I have roughly 5 minutes, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. And I'm happy to see also very many familiar faces here, but also new people and new faces. Ambrela Development Forum is a concept that bridges the gap and fosters collaboration between development and humanitarian sector, from public administration, civil society, and also international organizations. Specifically in Central and Eastern Europe, but this forum also offers Brussels-based institutions and our partners a chance to engage directly in the regions of the EU. But also equally important is to have our partners from partner countries here on board, be it today from Ukraine or Georgia, or from Israel, or Sudan, Ethiopia, and so on and so forth. Altogether, we might have participants from around more than 25 countries today with us. This third edition of Ambrela Development Forum is titled Building Bridges, Building Solutions. I think we often take bridges for granted in our daily lives. But it wasn't like that many years ago. As the saying goes, that Rome wasn't built in a day, the same with the bridges. Before the ancient Rome, people didn't have the ability to build bridges. The mortar and the arch were among the main ingredients that enables the humankind to build bridges, to build structures carrying a pathway or roadway over a depression or a precipice or an obstacle. I think today we must, and we should examine the bridges, our communication channels, our solutions, but also the level of trust among ourselves. And both within humanitarian and also development sector. Are these bridges functional? Can we safely cross to the other side? A lot was spoken about the current situation. We still have the largest conflict because of the Russian aggression in Ukraine since World War II. The situation in the Middle East, we've been witnessing the escalation day by day in Gaza, in Lebanon. But also crises that are somehow overshadowed by the Middle East, for instance, and that's a huge crisis in Sudan. Also recent budget cuts that already we referred to, certain vital programs and initiatives to support development and humanitarian efforts worldwide. But there's also something more. In Slovakia and also across Europe, societal polarization is alarmingly high. It often feels as if society is divided, standing on opposite sides of a chasm, or on the opposite sides of a bridge, if you wish. If there are no bridges, or if there is just a puffery or perception that there might be a bridge, but in reality there is no, or if you are willing to use the bridges, how can we initiate or keep going a meaningful dialogue? Furthermore, the entire architecture of official development assistance is changing. Ambrela Development Forum is primarily about Central Eastern Europe, but also, and the adjacent regions, but also about what's going on in the Middle East, in East Africa, and so on and so forth. While the EU still remains the large donor, the quality might be changing. New leadership of the EC under Ms. Ursula von der Leyen is on the horizon to be confirmed in the upcoming days in the hearings of the European Parliament. We heard a lot about Global Gateway. We heard a lot, but as a civil society, we might have many questions. Just recently, one of our partners, Eurodat, published yesterday a study on Global Gateway. And there is a humanitarian architecture under Grand Bargain, and I'm also happy that we have one of the Grand Bargain ambassadors with us today. So he would definitely be able to shed more light on what's there in front of us. It was already mentioned, so let me just briefly address the three main upgrades of this year's Ambrela Development Forum. One, shrinking civil society space. We need to address not only what's going on outside the EU, but also what is there, what we can witness in our daily lives when it comes to laws, when it comes to restrictions, when it comes to smearing campaigns inside the EU. Second, we decided to invite on board more businesses because we truly believe that the challenges ahead of us can be only coped with when we cooperate together. And last but not least, we try to listen to you and to your feedback from the previous two editions, and we added a special stream, a parallel stream of workshops, so that you can also, those of you who have appetite for more, let's say, practical, more interactive way of participating at Ambrela Development Forum, so that you can enjoy as well. Let me conclude briefly. I would like to encourage each of you to engage fully in our discussions today at Ambrela Development Forum. Share your ideas, challenge assumptions, and be open to new perspectives as well. This forum is a safe space for a dialogue where every voice matters. I would also like to acknowledge hard work and dedication of the organizing team and volunteers, and also our partners and donors who made this event possible. And also what we heard from Katarina Maternova resembles me one quote by Nelson Mandela, who said, "It always seems impossible until it is done." So it's a matter of perspective. Sometimes, many times, rarely or often, it used to be impossible what lies ahead of us. But once we are fully on the track, we start to realize that, okay, it might be possible. So let us approach our discussions with this mindset, recognizing that together we can achieve what we might have perceived before as something impossible. So thank you for being here today with us. I would also like to greet our online audience on YouTube or Facebook channels. And I'm looking forward for an inspiring, productive forum. And please enjoy today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dano. Thank you very much. Well, I hope that we gave you a short but attractive tasting or vision of what you expect from today's conference, what topics you will be able to discuss. And now let's have a short 10 minutes break, and I will see you at about 10 o'clock, sharply at 10 o'clock. Back again here, and please don't be late so that we can start with our program on time. So short break, 10 minutes, see you again at 10 o'clock. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have enjoyed the short break. You have taken the opportunity to have some water, some coffee, have some small talk, and now you are ready to sit down, take your seats. If you would like to stay with us here in the main historic hall, where we are just about to kick off our panel discussion and separate events. So please be so kind, take your seats so that we can start with the first panel discussion. It will be focused on the reconstruction of Ukraine. We will provide an examination of the ongoing efforts to rebuild Ukraine with a focus on the role of governments as well as opportunities for civil society development organizations in this process. So I believe that this is a very interesting and important topic that might be of great interest to many of you. But if you are interested in the importance of global education in today's world, you can leave us now and join our deep talk in Auditorium 1. You can also choose to participate at the workshop with Aron Halfen from Norwegian Forum for Development and Environment in the Auditorium 2 that will be dedicated to strengthening civil society organization. So I believe that the range of our topics is wide enough for all of you to choose what interests you most of all, and I believe that you will really enjoy our discussions today. So let me invite Andrea Najvirtova from People in Peril organization, who will moderate the first panel discussion on Ukraine and the efforts to rebuild the Ukraine. So Andrea, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first panel discussion on reconstruction in Ukraine. I'm the Executive Director of People in Peril, and I have the pleasure and honor to be moderating this discussion. As Ms. Maternova mentioned, we are now approaching day 1000 from the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. The war is not over, the suffering is not over, the destruction is not over, yet Ukraine and its people have shown remarkable resistance, wartime resilience, and strength and energy to engage in repairing the damage caused by the war and work towards recovery. Today we will focus beyond Ukraine's short-term immediate needs, which there still is a lot, to a more long-term recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine and long-term support of Ukraine. The panel will bring together representatives of the Slovak government, the Czech government, Ukraine government, and the EU. And we will discuss where we stand in terms of reconstruction. We will discuss where we stand in terms of the human dimension of reconstruction, and discuss concrete opportunities for civil society to participate and partner in reconstruction. It is my pleasure to introduce the speakers of the panel, and I would like to welcome, first of all, online with us, Mr. Vladislav Ditkivsky, Deputy Head of the State Agency for Recovery and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine, the central executive agency responsible for policies regarding restoration, renovation, and modernization of the Ukrainian state and infrastructure. For the EU Commission, and I would like to welcome, please, Mr. Orest Tokac, Policy Coordinator of the Ukraine Service at DG NIR. For Slovakia, Ms. Alena Sabelova, State Secretary of the Deputy Prime Minister for the Recovery Plan and Knowledge Economy, responsible for coordinating Slovakia's engagement on Ukraine reconstruction. For Czech Republic, Mr. Jan Marian, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. Welcome. So we will have approximately 1 hour for the discussion, followed by an opportunity for you to ask questions via Slido at the end of the discussion. And we would like to start with Mr. Vladislav Ditkivsky, who is just about to travel to another location. So I would like to invite Mr. Vladislav Ditkivsky to do an entry on Ukraine's priorities for reconstruction, Ukraine's needs regarding reconstruction, your priorities also in terms of the human dimension of the reconstruction and opportunities to engage with civil society. Mr. Ditkivsky, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude and tell you thank you very much for supporting my country in such crucial and difficult time for Ukraine. So I would like to represent briefly my institution and explain what kind of responsibility, what kind of forms of cooperation we have, and what kind of targets and goals we have. So first of all, our agency, the Agency for Restoration, I'm sure you have heard about us, and it's crucial to understand our role. The agency is not an architect or builder, and not even involved in the project selection or prioritization of the project. Rather, and entrusted with overseeing the execution on of projects are selected. The responsibility of selection lies with ministries and local authorities. So in our scope of activity, we are permanently cooperate with different levels of authority, society, international organization, and our colleagues from different countries. So this is the role for us to be open-mindedly and transparent in our activity to attract support as much as possible for our country in such difficult days and such difficult time. With a rich legacy in managing national infrastructure like roads and bridges, as well as spearheading international projects, our agency stands as implementation until 4 government-selected projects. Within agency's main responsibilities in major infrastructure projects, energy, water supply, utilities, transport infrastructure such as roads and bridges, border crossing points, etc. To be more specific, the agency has been appointed to respond after the Kakhovka destruction, Kakhovka Dam, I mean. What I mean by respond is ensure the availability of potable water to the regions, the water what you can drink and use in daily life, being deprived after the explosion. This is involving the construction of a 145 kilometers water main to supply over 1.5 million people with clean drinking water. We are prioritizing the most critical projects for the country, one of which crucial projects being the protection of the energy grids, consisting of 13 construction elements designed to protect against direct hit of drones and missiles. Roads and bridges have, of course, remained under the scope, as it is vital for the delivery of goods, ammunition, and more important stuff and things for our country. Further, to mention and 2 border crossing points, of which 29 have been passed under the umbrella of the agencies. So how can business contribute to the restoration process? The answer is participating in the tender procedures. There is where companies can show their experience and bid for involvement in upcoming projects. The more practical, the better the stands and standards, the pricing. So, and for this case, they can take participation in these tenders. For the international companies to observe all available projects in Ukraine market, they can access our Dream Portal. The Dream Portal, this is a platform online where you can provide information regarding what could you provide for our country or what kind of support you could provide for our country, as well as you can come to this online source and see all information regarding the current situation. See, this is a really useful opportunity to be online in the process and see what's going on regarding to different directions and different supports process, what we have in our country. So just briefly, I express you all short information regarding agency responsibilities, what kind of cooperation we have, and looking forward to have productive communication in scope of the current activity and event what we have today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ditkivsky. Okay. Yeah, are you still with us? Do you still have a couple of minutes for eventual questions also from the public?
Yeah, just a few minutes I have, but I have flight in 20 minutes. So if you have question, I'm open to discuss, but please let me go in 5-10 minutes.
Okay, so if any of you has questions to Mr. Ditkivsky, please feel free to use Slido. Maybe the organizers can also give an information where you can find the Slido code to contribute to the questions. But I would in the meantime ask Mr. Ditkivsky. So the agency, did I understand correctly, is working mostly on the hard component of reconstruction and recovery infrastructure. Who's in Ukraine responsible for the human dimension of the reconstruction? That is education, reconstruction, healthcare, integration of wartime veterans, integration of IDPs. How do you have divided responsibilities in Ukraine between these human and business and infrastructure components of reconstruction?
Some of such functions is responsibility of local authorities. It depends on concrete situation. So if we're saying that somebody have to reconstruct, recover, rebuild the school, of course, this is responsibility directly for the local authority. If we are saying regarding to recovering the person, bring the person in normal life, we have separate programs with the EU, for instance, support, or we have the programs in scope of local authorities who provide such support for their citizens. It depends on what kind of, really depend on what kind of concrete situation we need to consider today. Globally, yeah, for infrastructure, our agency have some scope of responsibilities, but we do not provide directly building process. We do not reconstruct. We are staying in between the donors and who will receive this support. For instance, it could be local authorities or regional authorities as well. And we provide the managing and provide the process to implement the donors' ability and availability to the concrete result for the local authorities. So if you have concrete issue, concrete example to clarify, you clarify, but in general, it's hard to say briefly how the responsibility is split.
Maybe another question on the engagement of civil society in the reconstruction process. Are you cooperating with the civil society, Ukrainian or international?
Yeah, we're open for communication and discussion. Of course, if civil society apply to us and a representative organization or association apply to us for communication, for discussion, some issues, we are open and we discuss, communicate and cooperate with them. It's obviously, but to be more precise, we have different form of communication. We can provide direct meetings offline, we can do that online, and we can do that by the official communication letter, etc., etc. So it depends on what kind of request we receive, what kind of period we have to respond, and what kind of question we need to be answered.
Thank you very much. In the meantime, I know the code for asking questions at Slido. It's you go to the website slido.com and type ADF 2024 for questions from the public. Good. Any question or comments? Maybe from... Nope. Good.
If there are no questions, just one more time, I would like to express our gratitude and say everybody that we appreciate so much that you have already done for our country and that for everything what you are going to do. Looking forward for our cooperation. We are open for such cooperation, and thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your work and all the best. Good. We will move now to the speakers here at the stage. So I would start maybe with a philosophical question or a practical question at the beginning. As also Ms. Maternova mentioned, the destruction Ukraine is facing is still tremendous. Ukraine is still facing frontline attacks, large-scale attacks on civilian infrastructure, on energy infrastructure. The number of civilian casualties is rising every quarter. Actually, also the number of child casualties is increasing every time. Houses are being destroyed. Civilian infrastructure is being destroyed. Is it there's huge humanitarian needs, and life-saving humanitarian assistance is still underfunded for Ukraine. Is it the right time to talk about reconstruction of Ukraine, long-term reconstruction of Ukraine, when Ukraine is still defending itself and still experiencing massive destruction and damages on life and human suffering? Maybe Mr. Tokac.
Thank you very much for the question, and my pleasure to be here with you today. I would give a direct answer and then elaborate a little bit. I think we have no other choice than working on reconstruction and recovery of Ukraine already now, while the war is going on. Of course, it's a different type of reconstruction, because when we say rebuilding the country, reconstruction of Ukraine, perhaps people think of large-scale projects, mega investment. This is not happening, obviously, right now as we speak in Ukraine, but still we have got to offer the people, the society, the whole economy of Ukraine the opportunity to survive, the opportunity also to grow. And I think there is also a misperception, perhaps, of what is the situation currently in Ukraine. Of course, there are relentless attacks by Russia on civilian infrastructure, on energy, on things like, for example, in 23 we have seen concerted attacks on ports, on the agricultural infrastructure, on silos, grain silos. This year we have seen really concentrated attacks on energy, as we heard from you and from our ambassador before. Yet in these two cases, we also see success stories on the side of Ukraine. So for example, when we talk about the last year's attacks on grain infrastructure and Ukrainian ports, despite of that, despite of the relentless Russian attacks, and really we can call this war crimes, what Russia is committing, targeting civilian infrastructure and targets. Despite of that, Ukraine has managed actually to reopen the Black Sea for trade. It has managed to do that in a combination of military activity, of course. So this is something that Ukraine managed to do, to push out the Russians out, or most part of its fleet out of Crimea. And also in combination with economic support, something that we in the European Union are also providing to Ukraine. Ukraine has launched a war insurance scheme that has helped, in fact, the ships to sail safely, on one hand due to the military action, and on the other hand, purchase war insurance so that it can be also international ships that were going out of the ports in Ukraine. So big success story despite of the war. Another example that I wanted to point out is indeed on energy, what is happening right now. We have heard earlier that 85% of Ukraine's generation capacity was damaged, destroyed. At the same time, we are working also in the European Union around the clock to help recover, rebuild, and make war-proof all this infrastructure that is needed for energy generation. Our experts have estimated that it's around 7 gigawatt that is currently the gap in terms of the generation of energy. And by the end of this year, we're planning to what is managed by the European Union and what is coordinated by the European Union. We are working to provide around 4.5 gigawatt of this generation capacity, which concerns both repairs of thermal stations, repairs of renewable energy. It also concerns generation. And here, this is about different type of reconstruction. We're not talking about mega projects that I mentioned at the beginning. We're talking more about decentralized energy generation, small-scale installations, mobile gas turbines, these types of equipment and support that Ukraine currently needs. And we are also providing support to make the infrastructure war-proof. For example, what our Ukrainian deputy head of the Reconstruction Agency spoke about, we are providing anti-air attack shields for energy infrastructure. These are really equipments, and this is infrastructure that helps to protect what is critical currently in Ukraine against attacks. So indeed, reconstruction is and must be happening right now, and we're putting all of our means to this end.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Ukraine has shown a remarkable resilience to, while at the same time defending itself against attacks, developing its economy, developing its country. As you mentioned, it's important that we continue at this lower scale investments and support with a view that the investments serve then also the long-term needs. Mr. Marian, I would be interested, how is the Czech Republic balancing its support between the need for the immediate urgent needs of Ukraine and the more long-term developmental needs of reconstruction, which also have to include the green and sustainability components?
Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm more than happy to be here for the second time at this conference. First, I have to praise, as Ambassador Maternova already mentioned, Ukrainian ability to do reforms towards the EU, even in the time of brutal Russian aggression. And second, it's really important to see Ukraine as a partner. So it's not only about us helping Ukraine, but this is also about the EU and member states, including Czechia, learning from Ukrainian experience, be it in the field of hybrid threats or now being in the field of military technologies, joint ventures, drones, and others. Furthermore, Ukraine was able to send 40 heaters or dryers to Czechia during the recent floods. So even now in the situation of Russian aggression, we work hand in hand, and this is mutually beneficial. As to this balance, I think, as Mr. Tokac mentioned, you have to do both. So you have to combine immediate assistance, and Czechia is very much active in this field, also including small-scale cogeneration units. We have deployed some 100, and now they provide electricity and heat for hundreds of thousands of people, and there are more being deployed as we speak, than water turbines, propan-butan heaters, etc. And I think at the same time, we have cooperation in the field of renewables. So just recently, Czech company MND opened the largest investment in Ukraine, in Western Ukraine, in Lviv Oblast. The wind park in the value of 62 million euros. So I think we have to do both. We have to do frontline the assistance, which we do, providing assistance to hospitals, primary health care, water safety, water cleaning, but also energy. And we have to look forward to the structural reforms and mutual cooperation. And let's be clear, this winter will be tough. So this is why we need to help Ukrainians to build and renew the energy infrastructure, including power plants and nuclear power plants. This is something we do also. And it's also part of the Czech contribution to the Ukrainian peace formula. So we co-chair the Working Group 1 on nuclear and radiation security. And we are not alone. We are not alone. We heard in the opening speeches about the civil society. I think we will come back to this. I just want to say that first, for Czechia, our foreign policy, this is natural. So we closely cooperate with Czech civil society organizations like Czech People in Need and others, development organizations. And of course, business is our natural partner in this effort.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sabelova, the Slovak government just recently approved its framework for the engagement of Slovakia in the reconstruction of Ukraine process. What are the priorities and instruments that we can expect at the national level, at the Slovak level?
First of all, let me start with thanking you for having me here, and I'm really glad to be in attendance. Before I answer your question, let me maybe echo the one you posed as the first opening question. 3 days ago, I had the pleasure to attend an international conference on Ukraine in Poland, organized by the Polish plenipotentiary for the reconstruction of Ukraine. And the panel I was in actually had the title, "Is Ukraine a friend in need or long-standing partner?" And this very title basically posed the dilemma you mentioned in your early intervention. And the answer is, well, it's both. It's a country in need, and its long-standing partner, and therefore, really, the imminent assistance to Ukraine needs to go hand in hand with a kind of long-term perspective and efforts to rebuild the country. Coming back to your question, I mean, as you may know, on Monday, we all witnessed the third joint meeting of both cabinets. The Slovak government and the Ukrainian government did sit for the third time within last 1 year together in Uzhgorod and discuss the projects of mutual interest. And I can announce that the fourth session is already scheduled, and it will take place either in January or February. It clearly shows that the relations between Slovakia and Ukraine are not sort of casual, but they are very, very resounding. The framework you mentioned is divided in certain chapters, and what basically says is that the key word for our engagement in Ukraine is connectivity. Before Ukraine becomes full-fledged member of the European Union, it needs to get connected to the EU territory physically. And when we speak about Ukraine, here we speak, and connectivity, here we speak about all sorts of connectivity. We basically define 3 strategic connectivity-related projects. Number 1, interconnector, electricity interconnector between Mukashevo and Velké Kapušany. And it's not only to address the imminent need of energy or electricity transmission, but it's something we will need also in post-war era. And that should be put in operation by the end of 2026. It's not small or midget investment. Here we speak about 70 million euros. And obviously that will also have some induced costs on our transmission system, which are far bigger. Then obviously we are going to enlarge or widen the capacity of the border crossing, because if we want to have Ukrainian goods basically flowing to Europe, that needs to be done. And also we are discussing a kind of railway direct connection between Kiev and Košice, because what the Ukrainian people need is to get access to international airport. And that is the airport in Košice. So that's the third sort of connectivity project. I am also pleased to announce here that the Office of Deputy Prime Minister has been in negotiation with a few countries inside and outside Europe, and we are going to establish a multilateral donor fund that will basically pool the money from various countries. Here I speak about Taiwan, the United States, UK. We are also discussing the proposition with the Netherlands, Norway, and Canada. And we will use this money in order to basically support via grants tangible projects in Ukraine, project preparation, and we will basically cover all fields of interest. We are also going to organize B2B forum in November, where we do invite a number of companies from Slovakia and Ukraine to establish working B2B relations. And coming back to my visit to Poland, we are also going to organize a new regional initiative called, well, the working title is Carpathia Initiative, and we want to put together the Polish government, Slovak government, and Ukrainian government, and establish a kind of regional forum that may become later on open to Germany and some other countries. Because what is absolutely clear is that we need to set up very vital regional cooperation. The accession process of Ukraine to the European Union is a historic opportunity for the bordering regions of Slovakia to develop through all these positive externalities and spillover effects. I mean, we witnessed that with the eastern part of Austria. In time, Czechoslovakia and the Czech Republic joined the EU. So here we have quite recent experience that the accession of a new country to the EU can help the regions boarding that country to develop further. So it's plenty of things the Slovak government does. And once again, recalling my session in Poland, in the end of that session, I was approached by a one of the TV channels of Polish TV, and I was asked quite a ridiculous question: why are the relations between Slovakia and Ukraine frozen? And that really came to quite a paradox because at that very day, two governments were in intense discussion. So we are very good friends of Ukraine. I think we are also receiving high appreciation by the Ukrainian authorities. And we really do a lot of tangible and very concrete steps to help Ukraine, both from short-term as well as long-term perspective.
Thank you very much. I already have a question which I will chip in here. You mentioned the multi-donor fund, and the question is, will it go also to local Ukrainian NGOs or through EU or Slovak partners? Who are the recipients of the multi-donor fund?
Well, we were very much inspired by multilateral funds running under the auspices of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, with the headquarters in London, because they had the experience and legacy in forming these funds. It's a very open fund. Basically, it's not open only to governments, but even private companies, NGOs, some sort of strong NGOs can contribute towards the fund. And each donor will come up with its own, let's say, list of priorities that obviously have to match the priorities on the Ukrainian side. And when it comes to recipients, we will basically support companies, also NGOs, from Ukraine and from Slovakia. But the projects need to be sort of labeled as projects of common interest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marian, to react. But before, just a reminder, the Slido hashtag is ADF 2024. So whoever wants to ask a question via Slido, please feel free to do so. Mr. Marian, reaction?
Thank you. 2 points on what we just heard. First, we have also Czech NGOs and experts and people on the ground, be it assistance to the frontline, to the soldiers, but also development assistance projects. So this is really important also for the foreign ministry, for the government to have first-hand experience, not only through our embassy in Kyiv or consulate in Lviv, but also through our Czech experts and also Czech companies who are there, for instance, in the field of agriculture. And second, we also have a very good experience with trilateral partnership. In our case, it's also Czechia with Taiwan and Czechia with the US. And of course, we have very good trilateral cooperation on military assistance, for instance, with the Dutch friends or the German friends.
Yes, you mentioned also, for example, Taiwan. Also, Slovak NGOs are able to do significant contribution to Ukraine's reconstruction, thanks to the contribution of Taiwan to Slovak foundations. A question also to Mr. Tokac regarding reconstruction efforts. How do you make sure, or how do you measure which of the funding and the measures implemented are in line with the requirements of a green and sustainable reconstruction?
Thank you indeed for the question. I would say that indeed rebuilding Ukraine in line with our Green Deal, the priorities of the European Union in terms of alignment with the green objectives, green investment, access to finance also when it comes to investing into climate mitigation, climate adaptation. This is really at the top of our agenda. We have a target within our budgetary instrument for Ukraine, the Ukraine facility. It was mentioned at the beginning today by our ambassador, Manternova. The 50 billion package, we have a climate target there of 20%, so we are actually required to spend at least 20% of our investment instruments in particular on addressing climate challenges and helping with the green reconstruction of Ukraine. It is absolutely essential that as well Ukraine's reconstruction is aligned with its EU accession path. So clearly we see the future of Ukraine inside of the European Union. We have launched officially the accession talks with Ukraine. This happened this year in June with the Intergovernmental Conference that has opened accession negotiations. And we are now in the process of reviewing all of Ukraine's law so that it is aligned, identifying where it is aligned and where are the gaps where Ukraine will need to process and progress in particular on its reform path. Ukraine has done already a lot in terms of reforms, but this links directly to the investments that we are providing with our tools and instruments to Ukraine. We have a solid, in fact, monitoring mechanism in place with all of our investment projects. We are reviewing what is happening on the ground and collecting data. And we are requesting our partners in Ukraine that all of the investments, as much as possible, they are aligned with our green policy objectives. So this is a key priority. This is just the 20% of our overall funding package, and I wanted to talk more perhaps about everything that we have done in terms of supporting Ukraine with the Ukraine facility, 50 billion. Perhaps we can come back to that in a minute, or I can tell you, in fact, out of the 50 billion, the biggest part goes to the budget of Ukraine. And already now we have paid 12 billion to the Ukrainian budget. We are processing another payment or looking towards another payment that would come still this year of 4 billion. So this is 16 billion for the budget of Ukraine just this year. We have seen yesterday another, in fact, milestone in our assistance to Ukraine, which is an agreement by the EU Council on an additional 35 billion to the budget of Ukraine, which is part of the G7 commitment to support Ukraine with immobilized Russian assets. And this is very important for us because, of course, we understand, we see that all these damages, all of what is happening in Ukraine is due to the Russian aggression, and we have to make the aggressor pay. So we want to use the Russian assets, and we have just received the green light yesterday evening on this, towards providing financing to Ukraine to rebuild, including in line with the green policy objectives. And finally, we have our investment instruments. We have launched already a first batch of investment projects amounting to 1.4 billion, which mobilize in turn 6 billion in investment that comes from financial institutions, but also from the private sector. We know we cannot address all the needs of reconstruction and recovery alone with public funding. We need to work with financial institutions, banks, partners, and we are also issuing now, in fact, we just issued last week, a new call for proposals that will amount to 2.75 billion, a lot of figures, but it means that a lot more funding is coming to Ukraine, both in terms of the budget of Ukraine, but also investment opportunities. And this is open indeed to organizations, to development finance institutions from all the countries, including Slovakia, including Czech Republic. So indeed, it is very positive to hear that a new plan has been adopted also by the Slovak government, and that there may be also opportunities for the countries in Central Europe to work together with the European Union to address all these policy objectives and needs of Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction together.
Follow-up question from the public with 5 likes, the most popular question. Maybe the question is what a reconstruction should look like in Ukraine. If these are not large projects, what are they? Green energy or something else? So maybe if you could give examples, you or any of you, of concrete projects, how we can imagine reconstruction beyond the financial figures and support to the economy.
So look, for us, we want to support the economy, its resilience, its ability to recover, to adapt to the war circumstances. And we want to also support the rebuilding, but also building of new and infrastructure that is aligned with EU standards. We are doing both at the same time, so it's not just about small-scale projects. I mentioned earlier the fact that the perception of Ukraine in the rest of Europe, let's say, it's perhaps not always reflecting the reality in Ukraine. Of course, we see the relentless attacks, we see the fighting at the front, we see huge destruction, in particular in territories that are adjacent to the front, but also going beyond. But we know that the amount of risk is not the same across east and west of Ukraine, that it is also possible to do very profitable business in the west of the country, and we are indeed supporting these kind of projects, and not only in the west of the country, but across territories. We have worked together, for example, with our partners from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and a set of insurance and reinsurance companies to understand better what are the risks implicated in the territory of Ukraine. And there is data, in fact, that is also made available to companies that can incentivize them to, in fact, go and do this kind of business in Ukraine. So, for example, I mentioned war insurance. This is one of the instruments that we are using. We are providing, including through development agencies and export credit agencies of EU member states, insurances to businesses to invest in Ukraine, notably when it comes to foreign direct investment. And here, just looking at the figures, for example, in 23, there was half a billion of foreign direct investments coming from EU countries in particular to Ukraine. This year, just the first semester of this year, we see already, this was the latest figures published by the central bank in Ukraine, 3 billion in foreign direct investments. So this is multiplied by 6. So we see these projects. This is going across the economy. This is energy, agriculture. This is logistics, processing, industry. All of this is happening. But also we want to work with the small players. We want to help war veterans, for example. This is one of the topics of today's discussion, how to support human capital. We want to create business opportunities and job opportunities in particular to vulnerable groups, war veterans, internally displaced persons, people that live adjacent to the front lines. This is a top priority for us, and we are doing both big projects and small projects at the same time.
Someone to add on concrete examples of projects?
Well, firstly, I would like to echo this word guarantee, because you should understand that Ukraine is a country at war with the highest risk, rated 7 in the world of finance. And without that guarantee, no private entity, no private bank can provide a credit to any business, go to Ukraine and do business there. So that guarantee is of paramount importance. And indeed, I think you will have the deadline for the first or second call is approaching. It's the end of October, and even our Exim Banka, it's the institution supporting our exporters, will apply with a bunch of projects for that guarantee. When you speak about the reconstruction and what it means in practice, here I should mention so-called recovery plan for Ukraine. It's a document approved by the Ukrainian government, very sort of toughly debated with the European Commission, and that is the guideline. All the strategic projects are there. I mean, the list, and the recent list of strategic projects submitted by the Ukrainian government to the European Commission counts 700 investment projects. And they really cover all. I mean, hospitals, roads, airports, both local and international, new generation, electricity generation capacities. So, I mean, the reconstruction of the country basically goes across all the sectors.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I hope we answered the question from the public. I would now like to focus on the human dimension of reconstruction, as we are also here at the Ambrela Forum, uniting humanitarian and development NGOs. On the Berlin Conference for Recovery of Ukraine, human dimension was mentioned as one of the 4 core dimensions of the recovery process. The human dimension entails issues such as mobilization of human capital for the actual reconstruction of Ukraine, as well as social cohesion and inclusiveness aspects of the reconstruction. It comprises issues such as education, integration of war veterans, of internal displaced persons, of returnees, healthcare, mental health support, but also gender equality and women empowerment as women and girls face multiple challenges in the current conflict. So going through the documents, either for example, from the Slovak government or reflecting the discussions we are having, my question is, don't we talk too little about the human dimension of reconstruction compared to the business aspect, business development and business advantages of the reconstruction process? Mr. Marian, maybe.
Maybe I'm not the best one to answer, but I will do my best. I think we don't forget about this. Again, we have Czech experts and projects on the ground. We have to talk about this, and we heard already about help to veterans here. We heard about the psychological support or mental health, which will be a huge problem. We have to do, and we do the same back in Czechia, where we have a large Ukrainian community, and we benefit from this, definitely. And of course, there you also have to work on integration of the children, healthcare, social situation of the families. So that's yet another point. And of course, for instance, we shouldn't also forget about the children kidnapped by Russia from the occupied territories. So this is where we actively participate in all the efforts of Ukrainian peace plan, peace formula of President Zelensky, which is the only game in town, the only real peace plan. And of course, let's not forget that all this is caused by Russian aggression, and it's the second Russian aggression. So I don't think we forget about it. It's important to work with local partners on the ground, and this will be a long-term effort.
Ms. Sabelova, maybe a question to you. How does your office of the Deputy Prime Minister plan to integrate, or what aspects from the human dimension are you planning to integrate in your engagement in Ukraine reconstruction?
I'll just give you one example. We offer the Ukrainian ambassador here, Mr. Kastran, the opportunity to take the Ukrainian war veterans and get them treated in our SPAS facilities. We already have an experience from PAS. As you may know, Rajské Teplice, very famous treatment facility, treated the veterans of the war in Libya. So that's a very sort of practical example. As you may know, we also provide full schooling to the Ukrainian children, because if we speak about recovery, it will take ages to recover. And we very much have to rely on human capital and Ukrainian children who, if properly schooled, can return one day back to their home country and work towards the reconstruction. We are also going to support the Ukrainian, let's say, researchers working mainly in Košice region at the University of the Technical University of Košice, because we think that that is a kind of talent gain Slovakia can have through the Ukrainian high skill academia people. So that's the another example. And I know that it won't satisfy your curiosity about human capital, but I mean, people firstly need to get their homes hot and heated, and only then we can speak about, gender equality and other issues. And social cohesion is basically somehow conditional to the ability of all of us to provide Ukrainians with basic needs, and that's food and energy and heat. That's a very simple answer.
Here, I would maybe also voice another perspective, how you can look at it, that also coverage of basic needs should go hand in hand with inclusiveness and in supporting the social cohesion so as not to create further conflicts or tensions in the society. But maybe a quick addition of Mr. Marian, you nodded.
I just had to highlight the role of a vibrant and functioning civil society, which we have in Czechia, and it's really instrumental in helping those Ukrainians who are in Czechia, but also we've seen strong Ukrainian civil society well before 2022, well before 2014, so this is our natural partner.
Thank you, and you helped me to transfer to the third part of today's discussion, and that is the involvement of civil society in the Ukraine reconstruction efforts. Mr. Maternova already mentioned in her entry speech how the EU has adopted instruments, ongoing grant schemes, projects, to change, adapt to the new purpose, to make it more accessible also to smaller and middle-sized NGOs, both from Ukraine and from abroad. Maybe, Mr. Tokac, do you have anything to highlight from how you, from the opportunities, concrete opportunities to NGOs from Central Europe and from Ukraine in the reconstruction process as managed by the EU Commission?
Indeed, I would like to just echo what Mr. Marian said. Civil society in Ukraine has been really vibrant for the last couple of years and even decades. We definitely see a strong partner in civil society in Ukraine, but also going beyond Ukraine in rebuilding Ukraine with civil society organizations from across Europe. And in fact, we are working very extensively with civil society already. We have actually 52 grants currently running with different civil society organizations, which amounts to 88 million euros. So this is a significant part of our cooperation. We recognize the particular role of civil society, in particular when it comes to analyzing the situation, understanding what is happening in the broader society in Ukraine, what are the trends and tendencies, acting as a watchdog of reconstruction and recovery, notably fighting against corruption, but also working together with the government to provide solutions that allow for transparency and accountability. So indeed, these are strong elements and points of civil society organizations. And more often than not, civil society organizations, NGOs, they are very active in social sectors, in the human dimension that you mentioned before. So I just want to underline that also when it comes to the European Union, we recognize that economy goes hand in hand with the human dimension. We are in fact inside of the European Union talking about the European social market economy, a market economy that doesn't leave nobody behind, that works for the interest of the communities, of the workers, in fact, and that focuses on producing public goods like health, education, and good governance. And this is again linked to the reform process that is happening in Ukraine. And we have plenty of projects that are also of investment nature, where civil society can play a role and where NGOs can also be part of those investment projects. I wanted just to perhaps mention a couple of them. We're currently implementing a recovery program that focuses on the Donbass region in particular. And here we are working together with the European Investment Bank and the UN Development Program. So this is a marriage of investment with development, and we are having also civil society organizations being involved in that, working in recovering, rebuilding social infrastructure, hospitals, schools, kindergartens. So work that has a very big socioeconomic impact.
Thank you very much. There will be also a separate panel on cooperation between businesses and civil society organizations in the reconstruction of Ukraine after this panel. Mr. Marian, you already mentioned that you cooperate and include also civil society. So I would like to ask then maybe Ms. Sabelova, as I'm looking also at the time, and I would like to reserve time also for the final questions also from the public. We have heard the Deputy Minister of the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that this year has seen major budget cuts of projects run by Slovak civil society, also including in Ukraine. So far, just one such project has been approved for assistance in Ukraine. In your framework document, you mentioned that you want to draw on the experience of Slovak NGOs who have been working for many years in Slovakia, have experience of working also in a country that is in war. So do you have any concrete ideas, any concrete instruments for cooperation beyond or except the multilateral fund that you already mentioned?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and actually I don't see yet that. I mean, we haven't seen yet the final sort of budget proposition. It's still under very hard debate, and I'm sure that even the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will succeed to some degree and get some funds for the humanitarian assistance. The answer to your question is no, we do not. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we established the multilateral donor fund. I also want to say one thing, and it's sort of general comment. I mean, I don't see personally NGOs as a kind of competitor. NGOs are for me a channel through which I can reach my goals. And if I think that NGO is much more efficient in terms of resource allocation than the government, then I would be silly if I were not to go through the NGO or sort of civil society actors. And they need to be an integral part of our effort. And maybe one thing, and it's my last comment on cohesion you mentioned earlier, Ukraine is part of so-called Agenda 2030. It's an international sort of worldwide agenda through the United Nations, and that agenda basically lists 17 development goals, and every and each goal basically links together economic, social, and environmental dimensions. So we have the international framework, and where we really still sort of lag behind, and I see huge room for improvement, is coherence of our policies. We very often do, including at the European level, an intervention in one policy, which is very much detrimental to the one of or two other dimensions of sustainable development. So what we have to learn in Slovakia, even in Western countries and in Ukraine, is to be coherent in our policy framework. And that coherence also applies to the coordination between state actors or state agencies and NGOs.
Thank you very much. And we have now last up to 7 minutes for questions from the public. So, Mr. Marian, you talked about the activities of Czech Republic in the energy sector. So, I will combine two questions on the energy sector. The first is nuclear power plants. When Russia occupies Zaporozhye plant, and they announces that they will bomb the other two nuclear plants. The question, how safe is it to support nuclear power plants? And maybe another question in relation to the winter coming. How is development supporting humanitarian needs winter approaching? Projects appear long-term focused, and the question is, will you supplement the current 3 to 6 gigawatt energy deficit?
Okay, I'll do my best. On winter, we take this very seriously, be it winterization, school assistance near the front line. Of course, many partners are helping Ukraine with the energy system, with the grid. We co-chair the Group 1 of the peace plan on nuclear safety. This is not only about Zaporizhzhia, where we follow the situation closely. For the time being, what we hear is reasonably safe. The situation is stable. But of course, the mere fact that Russia occupies the power plant, this is something we haven't seen here before. And unfortunately, Russia will do the same, and this is not the first time we prepare for winter, or we help Ukraine prepare for the winter. And this will be, I'm afraid, even worse winter than the previous one or two. Russia is trying to destroy energy infrastructure of Ukraine, the power generation, and the grid and the network. So we will help Ukraine with the sources for energy production, for heat and electricity. We will help to rebuild, and we will help with general international support for the peace plan and for the safety of nuclear installations. And we are really in close touch with the Ukrainian partners. Did I answer both questions?
One was on the nuclear power plants, the other one whether how are you planning to supplement the energy deficit?
And if I may, just two tiny points. First, many people at the Czech Foreign Ministry, including me, have NGO background, so they worked for Czech NGOs or think tanks. So this is something I can highly recommend. It's a good scheme, and it gives you some views which are useful also for the diplomatic work. And second, this is the panel about Ukraine, but let us not forget about Moldova, which is also in a very difficult situation. And Moldova is currently reasonably safe due to Ukrainian defense efforts.
Thank you very much. Ms. Abelova, there's two questions probably directed to you. On the multilateral fund, what is the advantage of Slovakia managing it? Why would donors contribute to this one instead of focusing on the ones run directly by multilateral banks?
You won't believe, but there are a number of bilateral mechanisms. Actually, I have heard in Poland that they establish a number of bilateral accounts, Polish, German, Polish, French, so maybe it's up to the audience to ask the ambassadors of those countries why they do prefer, or why they also want to work with us. I mean, actually, the idea started with the Taipei of China, I must say. And they approached the government to work closer with the government. And it's a country which is quite distant from Ukraine, but still have some vested interest there, especially in R&D sector. United States wants us to build a couple of roads nearby, or close to the border, so they offer us financial aid. And I think the multilateral fund has certain advantages because it's highly transparent. It has a kind of layer governance structures with a committee sitting every 6 months, basically revising the pipeline of the projects and deciding which of those projects will be supported and which will not get the support. So it's a kind of mechanism which is very standard. I spent 8 years working in London in financial institution, and I've seen many multilateral funds under, different administration. I don't think it's a kind of rare or bizarre structure.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for the many questions from the public. But as I need to be, as the timekeepers are already moving to the panel to stop us, maybe just like last maximum 1 minute statements from each of the panelists.
Or more questions.
Or maybe. Well, if there's okay, so if we have maybe last final question, I'm looking among the popular. Ms. Abelova, maybe a question, can and will Ukraine take us as a reliable partner besides our distorted domestic politics? So maybe a sensitive question at the end.
I think the answer is, I mean, it depends very much on perspective. Is it so much distorted? Is it more distorted than, let's say, in Austria? We have witnessed last elections. You think that the polarization in Austria is a sort of smaller magnitude compared to Slovakia? I mean, we are a democratic country. We have a kind of debate on different courses of public policies and actions. And as I said, I mean, the very fact that the Prime Minister of Slovakia did sit for the third time with the Prime Minister of Ukraine basically is not showing any kind of, that fear apparently hasn't materialized yet, and I hope that it won't in future.
If I may, first, I'm a diplomat. Second, I try to be optimistic. Let's be optimistic. We might have different election results and different views on some issues, even now, maybe between Czechia and Slovakia on some issues, but we have managed in the EU to maintain unity on the key issues, be it sanctions against Russia or support to Ukraine or EPF funding for Ukraine.
Thank you very much. I think these are strong words for closing this panel, also considering the topic of today's conference on building bridges, building cooperation, finding solutions. Thank you for being here and talking about your plans and your commitment to support Ukraine and its people. Also from the side of humanitarian and development NGOs, we do commit to support Ukraine as long as it's needed. And we are also seeing it as a joint effort between governments, business sector, and civil society. So thank you very much for your inputs and also for the questions from the public. And I give the floor over to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you all panelists for your inputs. And I especially appreciate the fact that you emphasized the importance of cooperation among governments, international organizations, banks, and NGOs. Well, now it's time for a coffee break. And I hope that I will meet you again here at 11:30. So please try to make it back at 11:30. Thank you very much.